Big blow for Spurs, Shaka. Harry Kane is out until at least April after surgery and a hamstring problem. What do they do to replace him?
I don't know. And unfortunately, that's been the problem or the question that's been haunting Spurs for quite some time. How do you find cover for Harry Kane? The issue is, I think he's best playing up front on his own with two wide men in support to provide service, or somebody coming from deep. Which means if you're buying a second striker, do you pay not so much to have somebody who's a squad player and would feature every now and then just to give him some rest, or do you pay big money and again maybe upset Harry Kane in having to use him in a formation that might not best suit him? I thought what looked a good purchase in Janssen not so long ago, but then in theory it made sense. In practice it just didn't. That's a challenge for Spurs now.
Okay, before we look at who could replace Harry Kane, let's look at the games that he will miss. And there's some big games coming up, including the Manchester City game on February the 2nd. There's a couple of Champions League ties against RB Leipzig and Man United. But first up, this weekend against Liverpool.
Yeah, and it's a big one. And not just because of who the opponents are and the fact that they're running away with the league, but I think Spurs need a good performance and result to really get that confidence back, because ever since Jose Mourinho came in, maybe there was a little bit of a bounce, but not as much as you'd normally expect. And now Spurs have just not been at all impressive over recent weeks, either in performance or in result.
And that's been him playing in some games.
Exactly. So they need something. They need a performance and a result that they can build on. As you mentioned, with the Champions League to come, a decent draw if you're a Spurs fan. You fancy yourself at this point to go crashing out of that as well. You know, the road back is a tough one for Jose Mourinho and all its Spurs.
Okay, before we get to who they could maybe sign, because there's talk in Italy about one player in particular, what about the players they've got? Son Heung-min comes back from suspension, which is very timely this weekend. He's played up front before. Lucas Moura, you and I have commentated on him at PSG when he's played up front. Do they have enough there that can get enough done until he gets back?
Listen, they're still a very good team at their best. The trouble is, Spurs have not been at their best for far too long. Some would argue all season, which is why Pochettino made way, and which is why I was a little bit critical of Jose Mourinho just moments ago. At their best, yes, Son can do that job. Yes, Lucas Moura can do that job. Nobody can be as good as Harry Kane, though, and that's the challenge. Without your best players and without your team playing at its best, do you see Spurs replicating what they did last season or any time before? And for me right now, the answer is no.
This has kind of gone full circle, so bear with me on this one. One of the players who's been linked strongly over the last 24 hours in Italy is Krzysztof Piątek at AC Milan. Now, you and I have stood here before when Ibrahimovic hadn't made his mind up and there was talk about him going to Spurs. He's gone to Milan, and Piątek is probably going to be on the outside looking in. 35 million euros they're talking about for Piątek. And you've already said about Kane, he's best up front on his own with support from wide areas. And that's where Piątek did most of the damage last season for Genoa and Milan.
And listen, after moving from Genoa to Milan, certainly arrived in Genoa, scored goals. Arrived in Milan, scored goals. And maybe it's that new club bounce that suits Piątek best. I'm looking for the silver lining here, because at the same time, as much as Milan have signed Ibrahimovic, Piątek has not been the Piątek that we've come to expect over the last couple of seasons. So maybe that the exit door is open. Piątek also linked with a move to Aston Villa. But now with Harry Kane's injury, this provides another option, in my opinion, a better option. Albeit it may be in the short term, but maybe he delivers goals for Spurs between now and the end of the season with that new club bounce, as I mentioned. And it puts him on a different level in terms of his own considerations for his future.
Finally, not as a direct replacement, but could Christian Eriksen be one of the main beneficiaries of Kane? Because he's kind of played and then he's not played and he's been on the bench. But if you've got Son up front, you've got an extra place in midfield. You could easily have Eriksen playing most of the game.
Yeah, and again, that's been the big conundrum for Jose Mourinho as a coach and Tottenham Hotspur as a football club. how much do you utilize him or how little, given the fact that it's more than likely he won't be signing a new contract and will either be forced out of the door this January, which makes that scenario null and void, or he leaves in a free in the summer. But whichever way, again, Eriksen is an incredibly talented player. And when you look at Spurs and their own struggles, there is a very strong argument to be made that, listen, you accept that he's going to leave in the summer for free, but at least get yourself back up amongst the conversations that you need to be. Top four still within touching distance, though as we sit here, if I'm a gambling man, I don't think Spurs make it.
Harry Kane out until April after hamstring surgery.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.